Think about the most radical fringe belief you saw on your social media feed this morning. You know the one.
Oh, we all have that one post that just makes us pause.
Right. That post where you stopped scrolling, you kind of squinted at the screen, and you thought, how in the world are thousands of people actually believing this?
Yeah, it's wild when you see those numbers, the likes, the comments.
Exactly. Well, what if I told you that it didn't get onto your screen organically?
Hmm, that it was pushed there.
Yeah. What if I told you that post, that whole ideology, was basically meticulously placed there by like a 50-person digital strike team?
Wow.
Just totally exploiting ancient human psychology and modern algorithmic blind spots,
Yeah.
and that the entire movement probably started with just a $20 digital microtransaction.
I mean, it completely reframes how you look at the digital world, doesn't it?
It really does. It changes everything.
Because, we like to believe that ideas win based on their merit.
Right, the whole marketplace of ideas concept.
Exactly. We like to think that truth naturally floats to the top. But the reality of modern influence is, well, it's much darker. And frankly, much more mechanical than that.
And that mechanical reality is exactly what we're going to dissect today. So welcome to a brand new deep dive.
I am so excited for this one.
Me too. Today, we're looking at some source material that is going to fundamentally change how you view everything from, well, political movements to those random wellness influencers on your feed.
Oh, for sure. It's universally applicable.
We have our hands on two interconnected, just highly detailed posts from a Finnish blog called Hatataskuplia.
Which is such a fascinating title.
Right. And for those of us who don't speak Finnish, that translates roughly to something like scattered thought bubbles.
I love that translation.
Me too. And what we have in these thought bubbles is essentially a masterclass in the engineering of modern influence.
Engineering is like the absolute perfect word for it.
Yeah.
Especially when you look at the author behind these posts.
Yeah, we definitely need to talk about him first.
Right, because before we even touch on the mechanics of his strategy, we have to talk about who is actually delivering this message. His background completely colors the entire text. He goes by the name Juka.
Right. And Juka is, he's definitely not some polished Madison Avenue marketing executive sitting in a glass boardroom somewhere.
Not at all. I mean, his self-description is incredibly unique. He calls himself a retired farmer, an embedded systems engineer, and an anarchist.
Quite the combo.
Yeah. But he clarifies an anarchist in the original sense of the word, meaning someone who stands for life, peace, truth, freedom, and justice, but entirely outside the bounds of traditional authority.
The combination of embedded systems engineer and anarchist farmer is just, it immediately tells you we're dealing with someone who understands how complex systems operate.
Precisely.
But someone who also looks at society from completely outside the mainstream bubble. Like, he views human behavior like a circuit board that can just be rewired.
Yes. And that cynical, highly analytical approach is perfectly highlighted by how he handles his own credentials in the text.
Oh, the credential section is hilarious.
It really is. In the text, he explicitly includes a section of his resume that he ironically titles Your Credentials for the Authority Believers.
Right, for the people who just need to see the badges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he lists an extensive, almost overwhelming avalanche of qualifications.
Like what?
Well, a doctorate of philosophy, for starters, but then he lists being an NLP practitioner, a Gestalt therapy practitioner, a hypnotherapy master practitioner.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes on. Master in systems thinking, and a modern applied psychologist.
Okay, let's just pause right there for a second, because if you're listening to this, some of those terms might sound, a bit opaque.
Sure, they're very specific industry terms.
Let's do a quick explainer. What exactly is an NLP practitioner, and why does seeing that on a resume instantly change how we should read his text?
So NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It's this psychological approach developed back in the 1970s. And it essentially claims there's a direct connection between neurological processes, language, and behavioral patterns that we learn through experience.
So it's about how words literally wire our brains.
Basically, yeah. In practice, it's very often used in high-level sales, negotiation, and, frankly, manipulation.
Interesting.
It's all about using specific words and even body language to subconsciously influence how another person is feeling and reacting in real time.
Wow. Okay, and what about the Gestalt therapy he mentioned?
So Gestalt is a school of psychology that focuses on how human beings find meaningful perceptions in a world that is, otherwise totally chaotic.
Like how we connect the dots.
Exactly. It's about pattern recognition, how we take a bunch of random dots and force ourselves to see a full picture.
Okay, so when you combine an understanding of how language basically hacks the nervous system with an understanding of how humans force patterns onto chaos,
You have the ultimate toolkit for building a narrative.
that is so powerful. But here is the kicker, right? The thing that makes Juka's list of credentials so brilliant and so deeply cynical.
The dates.
Yes, the dates. When you look closely at the text, almost all of these highly complex sounding master practitioner certificates were acquired in an incredibly tight window,
Right.
mostly throughout 2025 and early 2026.
Which is, I mean, it's physically impossible if we're talking about decades of rigorous academic study.
Yeah, you can't get 5 master level psychology degrees in 10 months.
No, you definitely can't.
Yeah.
He's essentially mocking the very concept of authority badges.
It's a total flex.
It is. He is showing the reader that the modern ecosystem of expertise is easily gamified. He is proving that he knows exactly how to acquire the badges required to manipulate the system.
While simultaneously telling you that those badges themselves are totally meaningless.
Exactly. He's showing you the magic trick while he's standing on stage performing it.
Which perfectly sets our exact mission for this deep dive. Our goal for you today is to take Juka's blueprints and, well, basically reverse engineer the mechanics of ideological marketing.
Yes. We are going to explore the psychological loopholes that exist in all of our brains
The modern technological shortcuts being exploited right now.
and the literal algorithmic hijacking techniques that can make any idea, no matter how fringe, go viral.
But to understand those digital tactics, we can't just start with the algorithm, right? We have to start at the absolute bedrock of human nature.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because before you can weaponize a social media platform, you really have to understand the ancient fundamental psychology that makes the human being want to buy into an idea in the first place.
Right, because if nobody wants what you're selling, it doesn't matter how sophisticated your digital strike team is.
It's just wasted effort.
Exactly. So Juka kicks off his first post with a very blunt, unromantic premise. He says, if your ideology isn't selling, do not blame the audience.
It's a classic sales maxim, but applied to existential philosophy. If your worldview isn't gaining traction, you either have the wrong target audience, your arguments are fundamentally weak, or your sales pitch is just flawed.
True professionals, as the saying goes, can sell snow to Eskimos.
Right. To Juka, the failure of an ideology to spread is never, ever the customer's fault. It is a failure in the packaging.
And to explain how to properly package an idea, he anchors this entire first section with a quote from the economist Thomas Sowell.
Yes, this is a fantastic quote.
The quote is, when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear.
So good.
Now, Thomas Sowell is a prominent economist, right? He built his career looking at how human beings act in their own rational self-interest. Why does an anarchist hacker rely on an economist to make this point?
Because both men, despite coming from radically different worldviews, they arrive at the exact same conclusion regarding human motivation.
They see the same underlying flaw.
Yes, they both understand that mass movements are rarely driven by cold, hard truth. I mean, truth is often complex, it's uncomfortable.
And it almost always requires sacrifice.
Exactly. And people don't like sacrifice. What people want to hear is a narrative that validates their existing feelings and totally absolves them of responsibility.
Right. It wasn't my fault. It was this other thing's fault.
Exactly. So Juka uses this Sowell quote to pivot into his core truth about human behavior. He says that all purchasing decisions, and he emphatically includes buying into a new ideology in this, are made entirely based on emotion.
Wow.
And logic is only brought in after the exact fact to justify the decision that the emotional brain has already made.
Okay, wait, I have to challenge that a bit. Are we really saying all decisions?
All of them.
I mean, if I'm buying a new washing machine, I'm looking at water efficiency, I'm looking at spin cycles, warranty lengths. That feels pretty logical to me.
It feels logical, sure, but neuroscience would actually argue otherwise. When you look at brain imaging during decision-making, the limbic system, which processes emotion, it lights up milliseconds before the prefrontal cortex, which handles logic and reasoning.
Really? Just milliseconds?
Yeah. Even with your washing machine, the initial impulse might be, say, the emotional stress of your old machine breaking.
Oh, I hate that stress.
Right. Or maybe it's the subtle emotional pull of a brand you've just grown to trust. You feel the need for reliability, and then your prefrontal cortex scrambles to find the water efficiency data to justify why you spent an extra $300 on the premium model.
So the logic is just like the lawyer hired by the emotion to argue its case to the rest of the world.
That is a phenomenal way to put it. The emotion is the client. The logic is the defense attorney.
I love that.
And selling an ideology works the exact same way, just on a massive scale. You do not sell a worldview with a spreadsheet of historical facts or a logical breakdown of policy outcomes.
Because that's just giving paperwork to the lawyer.
Exactly. You sell it by making the listener feel something profound in their limbic system.
And how have humans historically transmitted profound emotions?
Through storytelling. We are basically a species built around the campfire.
But Juka is extremely specific about the kind of story that successfully sells an ideology, right? He argues that the greatest, longest-lasting stories, the ones that literally build civilizations or spawn mass movements, they must answer three fundamental emotionally charged questions.
Yes.
Number one, where do we come from? Number two, why are we here? And number three, where are we going?
Those are the big three.
They're massive. Those are the ultimate existential questions. But why those three specifically? I mean, why not questions like, how do we make our community safer? Or how do we distribute resources fairly?
Because distributing resources fairly doesn't trigger a survival-level emotional response. It's too practical.
Ah.
Those three questions, origin, purpose, and destiny,
Yeah.
they touch on the very core of human existential dread. The human brain is essentially a prediction machine. It absolutely hates uncertainty.
Because uncertainty historically meant death, right? Like by a predator you didn't see coming.
Exactly. So an ideology that definitively answers where we came from, what our purpose is today, and exactly what the future holds, it provides this immense neurological relief.
It's like a warm blanket for the brain.
Yes. It triggers profound comfort and a deep sense of belonging. And from a memory standpoint, the stronger the emotion attached to an idea, the deeper the neural pathways are carved.
So you remember the ideology not because of its logical coherence, but because you remember the profound emotional relief it gave you when it handed you a sense of purpose.
Precisely. You remember how it made you feel.
Okay, let's unpack this with an analogy. Let's say selling this ideology is like selling a ridiculously expensive luxury sports car.
Okay, I like where this is going.
You don't walk into a dealership and buy a Ferrari for its trunk space or its sensible safety ratings.
Definitely not.
You buy it for the roar of the engine, the smell of the leather, the pure adrenaline. It's a completely emotional purchase. But when you drive it home and your neighbor asks why you spent your life savings on it.
You don't tell your neighbor, because I feel deeply insecure about my aging and I wanted to feel powerful.
Exactly. You pop the hood, you start talking about the carbon fiber chassis, the drag coefficient, the precise engineering of the fuel injection.
You use technical logic to justify the raw emotional impulse.
Yes. And that is exactly how an ideological convert talks to a non-believer.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
They don't say, I joined this fringe movement because I felt lonely and it gave me a community. They throw statistics, historical revisionism, and pseudoscience at you. They basically pop the ideological hood.
That is such a vivid way to see it. But here's what I am wondering about Juka's rule. If selling an ideology is like selling that Ferrari, do we always need the grand existential story? Like, what if someone is just trying to sell a smaller, more contained idea? Is a quick emotional thrill enough, or do you always need to deploy the heavy origin, purpose, destiny narrative?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Juka actually makes a vital distinction here regarding scale. The size of the narrative engine depends entirely on how revolutionary your ideology is.
Okay, so it scales up or down.
Right. If you are selling a minor lifestyle tweak, let's say a new diet fad or a morning productivity routine, you might just need a quick emotional charge.
Just a little spark.
Yeah, a burst of motivation, an appeal to vanity, or just a quick promise of having more energy throughout the day.
Right. You don't need to know the ultimate destiny of the human race just to buy a keto cookbook.
Exactly. But if you are trying to sell something world-altering, an ideology that requires the buyer to fundamentally change their relationships, their political voting habits, and how they view the structure of society.
A quick burst of motivation won't hold them.
No. The bigger the behavioral ask, the deeper the emotional anchor needs to be. You need the full three-question narrative to keep them anchored when society inevitably pushes back against their new radical beliefs.
That makes total sense. You need a bigger gravitational pull for a larger ideological planet.
Perfectly said.
So we have the emotional pitch. We know how to structure the story. But you can't just shout this narrative into an empty room. You have to know precisely who is listening.
Right. The audience is everything.
Which brings us to the second major concept in Juka's text, and frankly, the one I found the most abrasive, but also the most illuminating.
Is definitely provocative.
It's how he categorically splits the human population into two distinct audiences.
Yes, Juka does not sugarcoat his assessment of the general public at all. He makes this highly specific, bold claim that roughly three-quarters of the population, so 75%, believes, and will essentially always believe, whatever an authority figure tells them.
Okay, I really have to push back heavily on that 75% number.
I figured you might.
It just sounds so arrogant, like he's dismissing the vast majority of humanity as blind sheep, especially today.
Right, in the information age.
Exactly. We live in the era of do your own research. Trust in institutions is at an absolute all-time low. People are constantly questioning the government and mainstream media. How can Jaki possibly claim that 75% of people blindly follow authority in 2026?
It's a great pushback, and it's actually the exact paradox Juki addresses.
Okay, how so?
When people say they're doing their own research and rejecting authority, what they're usually doing is just rejecting the legacy authority and immediately adopting a new one.
Wait, so they aren't actually becoming independent thinkers?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
They are just changing the channel.
Oh, wow.
Evolutionary biology provides a lot of context here, actually. Critical, independent thinking requires a massive amount of cognitive energy.
It's exhausting to question everything.
It literally is. The brain consumes about 20% of the body's calories, and deep analytical thought is metabolically expensive.
So we're just wired to be lazy thinkers.
Well, as a survival mechanism, the human brain developed cognitive shortcuts. We outsource our sense-making. In a modern world that is overwhelmingly complex, where you're expected to understand macroeconomics, viral epidemiology, geopolitics, AI, all at once.
It's impossible.
Right. It is biologically impossible to be an expert in everything. So 75% of the population naturally seeks out an authority figure to just hand them the synthesized truth.
So the requirement for authority doesn't disappear. The face of the authority just shifts.
Exactly. Hundreds of years ago, the ultimate authority might have been the local priest. A generation ago, it was the scientist or the evening news anchor.
And today?
Today, a person might reject the evening news anchor, but they will instantly outsource their sense-making to a renegade podcaster, a controversial fitness influencer, or a tech billionaire on social media.
Ah, who the authority is changes constantly.
Yes. But the masses' fundamental psychological requirement to have an authority figure with metaphorical stripes on their shoulder remains totally constant.
They just want someone who looks incredibly confident to tell them what to think so they can get on with their day.
Yes. They look for the badges.
Okay, so if that is the 75%, what about the remaining quarter of the population, the 25%?
Juka labels those the individualists. These are the people whose brains don't automatically defer to the badge or the confident tone.
And you would think if you are selling a fringe, non-mainstream ideology, this 25% would be your ideal target market, right?
You would think so. But Juka notes that they are actually a much, much harder crowd to win over.
And why is that? Just because they are used to thinking for themselves?
Because they have incredibly strict personal criteria. They demand ideological purity based on their own highly bespoke, deeply analyzed worldview.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's use an analogy here to map this out. Imagine these two groups walking into a restaurant.
Okay, I love a restaurant analogy.
The 75%, the authority followers, they sit down, look at the chef in the white coat, and say, I'll have whatever you recommend. You're the professional. They trust the uniform.
Yes, perfectly stated.
But the 25% individualists.
Oh, they are the diners who sit down and immediately demand to see the exact sourcing of the ingredients.
Right. They interrogate the waiter about the pH balance of the soil the carrots were grown in.
Exactly.
Okay.
They demand a highly specific, custom-made meal. And if there is a single grain of salt too much, or if the chef uses a technique they disagree with, they will push the plate away and just walk right out of the restaurant.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The individualist does not compromise. Even the slightest deviation from what they perceive as the correct ideological path will drive them away instantly.
It's exhausting trying to please them. So, as an ideological salesman, you are looking at a deeply frustrating market landscape.
Yeah, you're trapped.
You really are. 75% of the population won't give you the time of day unless you already possess a massive established platform and authority badges. And the remaining 25%, who might listen to you without the badges, will abandon your movement the second you propose a single idea they disagree with.
Which brings up a staggering logistical problem for anyone starting from scratch. Where do you even find these people to pitch to them?
Right, because you can't reach the 75% without being mainstream, and you can't hold the 25% without being perfectly pure.
And the modern battleground for this, as Juka points out, makes it even harder. We're talking about social media.
Social media is the great bottleneck. I mean, in the past, you could stand on a soapbox in the town square and anyone walking by could hear you.
But today, the town square is privately owned by massive tech conglomerates.
Exactly. And Juka points out that platform compliance, meaning how far the underlying algorithm will actually allow your message to spread, depends heavily on how mainstream your ideology is.
So, if your ideology is essentially safe, corporate friendly, and aligns with the current power structure, the algorithm acts as a tailwind. It just pushes you to millions of feeds.
But if your ideology is genuinely disruptive, if it is designed to challenge real power or topple the current political or financial system,
The algorithms are designed to actively suppress you.
yes, you won't necessarily be banned outright, but you will be algorithmically quarantined.
Invisible walls.
Exactly. You are restricted to tiny, safe digital bubbles. Your message might echo loudly within that specific bubble, but it is kept far, far away from the eyes of the general public.
So if you're listening to this, you have to realize the sheer impossibility of the task Juka is setting up.
It seems hopeless.
Right. Direct contact with the masses is blocked by algorithms. You don't have the authority badge to win the 75%. You can't maintain the purity needed for the 25%. How on earth do you bridge this gap? What is the skeleton key that unlocks all of these doors simultaneously?
Juka argues there's only one skeleton key that cuts through the algorithmic noise, bypasses the need for an existing authority badge, and perfectly satisfies both the blind follower and the strict individualist.
And that key is
Tangible, immediate problem solving.
problem solving. I have to admit, after all this talk of existential narratives and cognitive bias, problem solving sounds almost, I don't know, disappointingly basic.
It sounds basic, but its psychological leverage is absolute.
How so?
Well, Juka states that whether you are operating online, where people are proactively searching for answers, or face-to-face, the ultimate strategy is to possess the exact working solution to a specific painful problem they are currently facing.
Think about how this circumvents the roadblocks we just discussed. If you solve a real problem for the 75%, they instantly grant you the authority badge.
Exactly. You solve their pain, therefore, in their eyes, you are the expert.
And for the 25% individualist.
If your solution actually works, it passes their strict purity test. They can't argue with real results.
Okay, I definitely see the power in that. But having a solution in your pocket is still only half the battle, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, you can hold the literal cure for a disease, but if you can't get anyone walking down the busy digital street to stop scrolling long enough to look at your bottle, you are still nowhere.
You have to get them the plus.
Exactly. Which leads us directly into Juka's second text, where he lays out an incredibly specific, step-by-step, tactical blueprint for gaining entry. This is the foot in the door strategy.
Yes. Juka's thesis here is razor sharp. He says the hardest part of ideological sales is not crafting the grand narrative. It is getting your foot in the door long enough to deliver a 2-minute pitch.
Because fundamentally, no human being buys anything, not a physical product, not a political stance, not a new worldview, from someone they do not trust.
And trust is exactly where traditional political and marketing tactics completely fall apart. Juka specifically calls out old-school political campaigning to illustrate this failure.
He critiques that classic, folksy tactic of handing out free coffee or grilling sausages in the town square right before an election, right?
Yes. Politicians have done this for decades. They think they are building goodwill. They think they are getting their foot in the door.
They think reciprocity will kick in. Like, I gave you a sausage, now you owe me a vote.
Exactly. But Juka points out the fatal flaw. Giving away a free sausage gets attention, certainly. People will absolutely line up for free food.
I know I would.
Right. But a sausage does not buy a deeply held vote. A free cup of coffee does not make someone fundamentally shift their ideological stance.
Because it is a purely transactional moment with no meaningful value exchange?
Exactly. It doesn't solve a real problem in the voter's life, other than just a momentary craving for a snack. It does not build structural trust.
So if the free sausage fails, what actually builds that structural trust?
The secret, which Juka cynically notes, that internet marketing gurus will literally charge you thousands of dollars to learn, despite it being incredibly simple, is the genuine value exchange model.
Genuine value exchange.
Yes. You must provide something of high perceived value by solving a small, real problem for the person, and you must do it either entirely for free or at a really, really good price.
And this is where the text transitions from sociology into a literal financial blueprint. Juka maps out an escalating funnel for building trust, using a specific pricing model as the example.
And the psychology behind this funnel is brilliant, but also, highly manipulative.
Let's walk the listener through this financial escalator. What is step one?
Step one is the entry point, the filter. You offer a mini course or a small digital product with a very low barrier to entry. Juka uses the specific price point of 19.95.
Now, the crucial thing to understand here is that the goal of this product is not revenue, right?
Not at all. You are not doing this to get rich.
hmm
The 19.95 product functions purely as a psychological bouncer at the door of an exclusive club.
A bouncer, I would think that if you want the absolute maximum number of people exposed to your ideology, you would just give the introductory material away for free. Put it on YouTube. Make it a free PDF.
That's the common instinct, yes.
So why put a 20-euro roadblock in front of it?
Because of the psychological phenomenon of skin in the game and the sunk cost fallacy. If you offer a solution for free, you will absolutely get a massive audience. You will get tens of thousands of downloads,
Ugh.
but you will be flooded with digital tourists, people who download it, never open it, and feel zero commitment to the material.
I see.
By charging just $20, you filter out the passive scrollers. The moment someone pulls out their credit card, even for a tiny amount, their brain chemically commits to the process.
You only let in people who are actively, genuinely experiencing the pain of their problem and are motivated enough to invest in a solution.
Exactly. Now you have a highly curated, motivated audience.
That makes sense. So let's say I am the target. I had a problem. Maybe I couldn't figure out how to manage my personal finances, or I was feeling completely disconnected from modern dating.
A classic pain point.
I buy your 19.95 course. You give me a few quick tips that actually work. You solved my micro problem. I'm happy. I trust you now. What is step two?
Step two is where you construct the illusion of massive authority to build profound, unquestioning trust and achieve what Juka calls perceived expert status. You don't immediately jump to your radical ideological pitch.
Right.
You offer a deeper, far more comprehensive course for 99.95.
But here's the wild part of Juka's theory. He hints that it almost doesn't matter if anyone actually buys the 99.95 course.
This is one of the most brilliant psychological hacks in the whole text. The sheer existence of multiple, progressively expensive products is what manufactures your expertise in the mind of the consumer.
That is fascinating.
Think about it. The consumer lands on your website. They see an introductory 20-euro course, an advanced 100-euro course, and an elite masterclass. Their brain immediately uses a heuristic shortcut.
They think, well, he has a fully developed curriculum spanning multiple price tiers. He must be a widely recognized, true expert in this field.
Yes. The staircase itself functions as the authority badge that the 75% of the population desperately craves.
You are artificially constructing the exact uniform they're biologically programmed to respect.
Yes. You didn't wait for a university to give you a PhD. You built a pricing tier that mimics the authority of a PhD.
And then once they are looking up at you from the bottom of the staircase, viewing you as the ultimate expert, you spring the trap. Step three.
Step three is the big thing. The massive, life-altering course or coaching program priced at 10,000 euro.
10 grand.
Now, Juka humorously notes that in a smaller, more skeptical market like Finland, you might need to adjust that price point down initially. But the psychological principle remains universal.
You walk the target up a staircase of increasing trust, increasing financial investment, and increasing perceived authority.
Right. Until their brain is entirely primed to hand over significant resources. And that resource doesn't just have to be money. It can be their absolute, unwavering ideological devotion.
I want to pause here and speak directly to the listener. If you are listening to this, you might be thinking, I would never fall for this. I would never hand over $10,000 or my entire worldview to some random internet guru.
It's easy to think you're immune to it.
But Chuka's entire point is that by the time you reach step three, your brain has been fundamentally rewired by the previous steps.
Exactly. You don't see a random guru anymore. You see the one person who solved your problem in step one when no one else could. Your logic has already been totally hijacked by the relief they provided.
The initial friction of handing over money or trust is the hardest part. Once that seal is broken with a small, successful transaction, that initial 19.95 escalating the commitment becomes exponentially easier.
Because the brain just desperately wants to remain consistent with its past actions.
And there is a terrifying modern technological detail that Juko drops into this blueprint. If you're listening and thinking, well, building 3 escalating courses, writing curriculums, filming hours of videos, that takes years of actual expertise and hard work.
Not anymore.
Right. Not in 2026.
Jika points out that modern artificial intelligence models have completely obliterated the barrier to entry. AI can now build all these escalating steps for you with near zero effort.
You don't even need to be an expert in the subject matter.
Nope. You prompt an AI to generate the syllabus, write the highly persuasive scripts, create the interactive worksheets, and even synthesize realistic video avatars to deliver the lectures.
Almost anyone, regardless of their actual knowledge, can generate this content, set up this passive income trust track, and instantly don the mask of an authority figure.
It is deeply chilling. You don't need a lifetime of study. You just need a weekend and a good prompt engineer.
And Juka notes that this escalator culminates in what he calls the Sarasvu stage. He is referencing Jarice Sarasvu, who is a very high-profile, somewhat polarizing Finnish businessman and media personality.
Yes. Juka uses him as shorthand for the absolute peak of this manufactured mountain. Once you have built this AI-generated staircase and you finally leverage that into mainstream media attention, you can pull a Sarasvu.
You can charge €1,000 an hour to stand on a stage and sell absolute nonsense to corporate executives.
And the ultimate irony, which Juka highlights beautifully, is that the nonsense you are selling for €1,000 an hour on that grand stage is the exact same readily available information that lesser-known creators are currently selling for $9.95.
The information didn't change at all.
The only difference is that the lesser-known creators never built the psychological staircase. They never manipulated the trust funnel to achieve perceived authority.
I have an analogy for this whole process. This escalating staircase is the exact psychological mechanism behind modern video game microtransactions.
Oh, this is a great comparison.
Let me set this up, and you tell me if the psychology matches. You download a massive, beautiful multiplayer game entirely for free. You're playing it, having a great time, dopamine is flowing. Then the game offers you a cool cosmetic outfit for your character for just $2.
Right.
It's $2. You can find that in your couch cushions, so you buy it.
And right there, the fundamental relationship has changed. You have crossed the threshold from a user to a paying customer. The barrier of financial friction has been destroyed.
Exactly. You are invested. Next week, they offer a season pass for $15 that unlocks more levels. You buy it because you already look cool in your $2 outfit and you want to show it off.
Of course.
Before you know it, a year has passed, you have spent $500 on a free game, and your entire Friday night social circle revolves around this digital ecosystem. You didn't decide to spend $500 on day one. You decided to spend $2, and the system walked you up the stairs.
That is a flawless mechanical comparison. The microtransaction in the game is the 19.95 course. It bypasses the critical thinking of the prefrontal cortex because the risk seems so incredibly low.
But wait, let me push back on how this applies to a grand ideology. Earlier in the text, Juka noted that a major reason small, fringe political parties fail is that they promise grand solutions 20 years down the line.
Yeah.
They say, vote for us, suffer through a transitional period, and in a generation, society will be a utopia. How does the immediate $20 microtransaction model apply to selling a massive, world-changing ideology that realistically might take decades to implement?
What's fascinating here is that it is the most vital connection in the entire strategy. Trust cannot be built on future promises. Trust is exclusively built on immediate verifiable results.
Immediate results.
If you can solve a micro problem for a person today, let's say your 19.95 course teaches them a communication technique that stops arguments with their spouse that very night, or you explain a tax loophole that saves them $200 tomorrow, you have proven absolute competence.
And because you delivered a result today, they will blindly follow you into the future.
Exactly. But if your opening pitch is a promise of a utopian solution someday when the majority finally agrees with us, you have provided zero immediate value.
You only attract uncommitted dreamers, people who might nod along in an internet forum but will never actually sacrifice their time or reputation for the movement.
You must solve the micro problem today to earn the right to lead them toward the macro ideology tomorrow.
Wow. Okay. That is profound. So we've executed the funnel, we've extracted their initial investment, we've solved their immediate problem, and we have secured their trust.
We have.
But as Juka warns, trust, as strong as it is not enough to sustain a lifelong ideological commitment. Trust is fragile. Trust can be broken by a scandal or a simple mistake.
Yes.
To build an unshakable movement, Juka says you have to take that trust and escalate it into something much deeper, much more permanent, and frankly, much more dangerous. You have to metamorphose trust into identity.
Yes. This is where the true dark alchemy of ideological manipulation happens. Juka describes a psychological transition from a casual follower, someone who bought your course and liked your post, into a radical true believer.
And how does that transition happen?
The mechanism is a slow, methodical drip feed of information. You do not dump the entire radical fringe worldview on them on day one.
Because that would trigger their cognitive defenses.
Exactly. You feed it to them piece by piece, perfectly confirming their pre-existing biases, making them feel like they are personally discovering hidden truths that the rest of the world is too blind to see.
It's the boiling frog metaphor.
Exactly. Slowly, the belief system stops being an external concept that they simply agree with, and it becomes the foundational pillar of who they are. The ideology integrates into their actual ego and identity.
And once that happens, it's almost impossible to reverse, right?
To attack the ideology is no longer just a debate. It is perceived by their brain as a literal attack on their physical survival.
And how do you know when this alchemy is complete? Juka provides a litmus test in the text that is genuinely funny, but also incredibly accurate.
Oh, the party introduction test.
Yes. He asks, how do you know an ideology has fully become part of someone's identity? Don't worry, they will tell you immediately within the first 5 seconds of introducing themselves at a party.
We have all experienced this exact social dynamic.
Absolutely. It's a cliche for a reason. Hi, I'm John. I'm a vegan. Hi, I do CrossFit. Hi, I'm a crypto investor. Hi, I'm a sovereign citizen.
Right.
When the ideology is the very first piece of data they offer about themselves to a complete stranger, you know the integration is total. They can no longer separate their humanity from the belief system.
But Juka's text takes a very dark, very Machiavellian turn right here. Because to truly solidify this group identity, to make it entirely unbreakable against outside logic, positive reinforcement, and community building are just not enough.
They need something stronger.
The author introduces what is perhaps his darkest, yet most historically proven tool for cementing group cohesion. You must actively invent or meticulously identify a big bad monster.
The monster. This is where the strategy shifts from self-help to warfare.
Yes, and the brilliance of the monster tactic is its versatility. The monster does not have to be a literal
It could be anyone, right?
Exactly. It can be a specific individual, like a rival politician. It can be a competing ideology. It can be a shadowy, ill-defined organization, like the deep state or global elites.
It can even be a totally abstract force, like modernity, wokeness, or traditionalism.
The specific identity of the monster doesn't matter. What matters is how you position your ideology in relation to it. Your ideology is no longer just a good idea for living a better life. It is the ultimate essential savior.
It is the only shield that protects the fragile follower from the existential threat of the monster.
Right.
And when you introduce this monster, suddenly the follower's entire chaotic life makes perfect sense, right? Because every daily problem they experience, their lack of financial success, their failing marriage, their deep-seated feeling of alienation and loneliness.
None of it requires personal introspection anymore.
None of it is their fault. It is entirely the fault of the monster's machinations. And the ideology is the only weapon keeping the monster from destroying them completely.
That is the exact psychological relief it provides. Juka makes a profound observation here regarding human neurobiology.
Which is?
It is vastly, astronomically easier to manipulate a large group of people into fearing or hating a shared enemy than it is to get them to positively support a shared goal.
Why is that? Why is fear so much stronger than hope?
It comes down to how the amygdala functions. The amygdala is the ancient part of our brain responsible for processing fear and threat detection.
Okay.
Evolutionary biology wired us to have a negativity bias. If early humans missed a positive opportunity like failing to spot a berry bush, they might go hungry for a day.
But if they missed a negative threat like failing to spot a saber-toothed tiger, they died instantly.
Precisely. Therefore, the brain prioritizes negative, fear-based information over everything else. When you introduce a terrifying monster, you hijack the amygdala.
The fear response just takes over.
Yes, it floods the brain with cortisol and adrenaline, which literally suppresses the functioning of the prefrontal cortex, the exact part of the brain responsible for logical dissent and critical thinking.
If you can convince a group that the monster is coming to destroy their way of life, They will bind together with a ferocity and a blind loyalty that positive, utopian thinking can never, ever achieve.
Exactly.
But despite the sheer power of this amygdala hijack, Juka is also a pragmatist, and he points out the inherent fragility of this monster strategy.
Yes, he reminds the reader to look back at that 75% statistic from the beginning.
Right. Only about three-quarters of the population have the psychological makeup to properly stick to this kind of authoritarian ideological glue. And on top of that, these people are not blank slates.
They are likely already deeply attached to other groups and fighting other monsters.
You are not operating in a vacuum. You are fighting a brutal war for real estate inside their mind against a dozen other ideological salesmen.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for the stability of the movement? Let's use an analogy. This sounds exactly like the sociology of high school
Oh,
cliques.
that's a brilliant way to frame it.
Think about it. You join the goth kid clique or the hyper-aggressive jock clique, primarily because the group protects you from the bullies, the high school monsters.
Right.
Bajuka says individuals will switch jackets, they will abandon their deeply held group identity incredibly quickly if a better offer comes along. Does this mean that these manufactured ideologies are inherently unstable? Are they doomed to be trapped in an arms race, constantly having to invent scarier and scarier monsters just to keep their members from getting bored and defecting to a competitor?
You have deduced the exact vulnerability of this system.
Yes.
The competition between ideologies in the modern attention economy is relentless.
It never stops.
Never. Juka makes it crystal clear that an individual only stays in an ideological group as long as there is a clear, immediate personal benefit, usually in the form of emotional security or social status.
So loyalty only goes as far as the current benefit.
Right. The moment your monster seems a little less scary or a shiny new savior appears on their feed offering a stronger shield, a more exciting narrative, or a more validating sense of superiority,
They will defect without a second thought.
the old jacket comes off, the new one goes on. To maintain the movement, the leader is forced into constant maintenance, constant escalation of fear-mongering, and constant reinforcement of the savior narrative. It is an exhausting treadmill.
Okay, let's take a beat and look at the machine we have built. I want the listener to really picture this structure. We started by tapping into the fundamental emotional desires of humanity, our need for a grand story of origin, purpose, and destiny.
Yes.
We filtered our audience, knowing we are playing directly to the 75% who biologically crave an authority figure. We got our foot in the door by completely bypassing logic, solving an immediate micro problem for 19.95 to build unquestioning trust.
The foundational blocks.
Then we escalated that trust into a full-blown, ego-integrated identity by introducing a terrifying monster that hijacks their amygdala, proving that only our ideology can defeat it.
It is a massive psychological architecture.
We have constructed the perfect psychological weapon. But here is the final, insurmountable hurdle. A weapon is useless if it's just sitting in an empty forest. How do we physically deploy this weapon into the digital ecosystem?
Especially when we know that tech algorithms are actively designed to quarantine non-mainstream disruptive ideas.
Exactly. You can't just tweet this grand ideology and hope for the best.
No, organic growth for a radical idea is a total myth. And this brings us to the climax of Juka's text, his final, highly specific and frankly militaristic tactical blueprint. He pivots entirely from psychology into brute force computer science execution.
This is where we learn how to force the code to do our bidding. He calls this concept the media virus.
Yes, a term he explicitly borrows from the prominent media theorist Douglas Rushkoff.
Okay.
It is vital to understand that a media virus is not an organic piece of content that just happens to get popular because it's funny or insightful. A media virus is a highly engineered, synthetic piece of digital media, meticulously designed to exploit the specific vulnerabilities in the code of social media algorithms.
It is a blueprint for forcing an ideology onto the screens of potential customers, whether the algorithm wants it there or not.
Exactly.
And Juka doesn't just give vague guru-style advice here, like, be authentic. He gives precise numerical requirements for what we can only describe as a digital strike team. What does this team look like for a country the size of Finland?
He dictates that you need a highly coordinated, disciplined team of 30 to 50 dedicated individuals.
30 to 50.
Yes. And there is an absolute non-negotiable technical requirement. Every single person on this team must have an active account on the target social media platform. And crucial point here, that account must not be currently shadow banned.
Okay, let's explain shadow banned for the listener because it's a term thrown around a lot, but the mechanics really matter here.
A shadow ban is when a social media platform's algorithm decides that a user's content is borderline spam or violates community guidelines. But instead of deleting the account and alerting the user, the algorithm just silently stops showing their posts to anyone else.
The user thinks they are posting normally, but they are screaming into a void.
Exactly. Juka emphasizes that every account on the strike team must be in good standing, with the algorithm's invisible back-end trust scores.
How does an algorithm actually calculate a backend trust score?
It tracks a user's historical metadata. Does this account only post political outrage? Do they use banned words? Do other users quickly scroll past their videos? If so, their trust score drops and their reach is throttled. The strike team must consist of accounts that look like normal, healthy users to the machine.
30 to 50 clean, high-trust accounts. Got it. But they can't just lat into a native group chat on Instagram or X and say, okay, guys, let's launch the virus. Juka has a very strict rule about off-platform coordination.
This rule is vital. Juka explicitly states that all tactical planning, all sharing of the digital assets, all scheduling of the drop must happen on a completely different encrypted app.
Like what?
Use Discord or Signal or Telegram to plan a strike on X or TikTok. Because the algorithms don't just read public posts, they read the metadata of internal messaging systems too. If 50 people coordinate a mass posting event in a native DM group, the algorithm's security heuristics flag it as a botnet or coordinated inauthentic behavior.
It will instantly kill the reach before the posts even go live.
Yes. To the target platform, the sudden burst of viral activity must look like an entirely organic, spontaneous cultural moment.
It has to look like natural magic to the machine. Okay, so we have our invisible strike team hiding on Telegram. What exactly are they posting? Because Juka is incredibly rigid about the exact technical requirements of the asset.
He has reverse engineered exactly what the code favors. First rule, the content must be a native image or video. Native meaning the video file is uploaded directly to the platform's servers. Juka warns that sharing external links, like a link to a YouTube video or a long-form blog post, kills visibility instantly.
Let me guess why. Because the social media platform's #1 overriding goal is keeping users on their platform for as long as possible so they can serve them more advertisements. If you post a link that takes a user away to a different website, you are costing the platform money, so the algorithm punishes you by burying your post.
Exactly. You must play into the platform's financial incentives. Second rule for the asset, it must be incredibly short. The video should be under 20 seconds, but Juka strongly prefers under 10 seconds.
Under 10 seconds.
And he doesn't mince words as to why. He explicitly blames what he calls the ADHD generation's completely destroyed attention span. The algorithm measures watch time and completion rate.
Right.
If a user can't consume the message in 10 seconds and scrolls past, it tells the algorithm your content is boring, which again kills the reach.
10 seconds to deliver the seed of a worldview. It's wild. And then there's the text accompanying the video. It requires a punchy slogan and exactly one shared hashtag. Just one. I need you to explain this because whenever I see influencers trying to go viral, they have a block of 30 different hashtags at the bottom of their post. Why does Juka demand only one?
Because those influencers are actively suppressing their own reach. The algorithm uses heuristics problem-solving code to detect spam. Using 20 hashtags is a hallmark behavior of a desperate spam bot trying to trigger every possible search term.
Ah, so the algorithm sees that and throttles the post.
Yes, one highly specific, unique hashtag shows the machine that the content has intense focus and genuine organic intent. Juka also adds a very devious note. While hijacking an existing, incredibly popular hashtag like inserting your political video into a hashtag about a pop star is technically frowned upon by the user community.
It is highly effective for forcefully injecting your virus into an established massive stream of traffic.
Precisely.
Okay, so the strike team is ready. The 10-second native video is loaded on 50 phones. The single hashtag is prepped. How does the actual drop happen? Because the execution sounds like a military strike.
It is executed with absolute military precision. First, the timing. The team commander must monitor the cultural landscape and actively avoid posting during massive organic trending events.
Like a major sports game.
Right. If the Eurovision Song Contest is live or the World Cup final is playing, the algorithm's bandwidth is entirely consumed by pushing that mainstream content. Your virus will be completely drowned in the noise.
You must wait for a quiet window in the digital ecosystem.
And then at the exact mathematically agreed upon minute, all 30 to 50 members post their identical or slightly varied assets simultaneously.
Boom! A sudden, massive spike of data hits the servers. But posting isn't enough, right? That's just planting the seed. They have to instantly water it with an amplification loop.
Yes. The moment the posts go live, the strike team goes into overdrive. They don't just post, close the app, and go to lunch. They must aggressively like, comment on, and share each other's posts.
They have to fake the engagement.
They spend at least a solid hour acting as a hyper-engaged audience for their own synthetic content. They plant the single hashtag in relevant tangential groups. They reply to existing popular threads with the video.
They are artificially generating what the algorithm calls engagement velocity.
Exactly. A massive spike in likes and comments per second. This triggers the algorithm's failsafes. The code thinks, well, this is breaking news. This is highly engaging. We must push this to the global Explore page immediately.
And there's one final, incredibly manipulative tactical nuance the team uses during this golden hour of amplification. They specifically target what Juka calls multipliers. Who are the multipliers in this ecosystem?
Multipliers are highly visible public figures, celebrities, politicians, massive mainstream influencers. The strike team swarms the comment sections of these multipliers' most recent, highly trafficked posts.
But, and this is critical to understand, the goal of the strike team is not to convert the celebrity to their ideology. They don't care at all what the celebrity thinks.
Not even a little bit. The goal is to force the media virus, with its compelling thumbnail and single hashtag, into the direct eye line of the celebrity's massive captive audience scrolling through the comments.
They are parasitically hijacking the multiplier spotlight to illuminate their own message.
Yes.
It is exactly like a digital flash mob. Think about how a physical flash mob works. It's like 50 people suddenly breaking into a perfectly synchronized, highly choreographed dance in the middle of a crowded shopping mall.
Yeah.
The mall security, which represents the algorithm, doesn't know what to do because they've never seen this specific pattern of movement before, so they freeze. And the shoppers, the audience, just can't look away from the spectacle. It is brute force attention hijacking.
It is a stunningly effective mechanical exploit of a system designed to measure attention, not truth.
But I have to ask you this, and it brings this entire massive blueprint full circle. Yuka warns, almost as a cynical afterthought at the end of his text, that even with massive publicity, even if your flash mob goes viral, even if millions of people see your 10-second video on the Explore page,
Right.
if you aren't solving a real problem, the viral moment goes absolutely nowhere.
This raises an important question, maybe the most important question of the entire deep dive, and it is the crux of Juka's philosophy.
Is all this incredible synchronized algorithmic manipulation completely useless without that initial foot-in-the-door substance we discussed in step one?
Yes, Juka is absolutely resolute on this point. Publicity without trust is a dead end. Virality without value is just digital noise.
Right.
The media virus, the synchronized strike team, the carefully selected hashtag, all of it, is merely a delivery vehicle. The virus only delivers the audience to your digital front door.
But if they knock and you do not have that 19.95 solution to a real painful problem they're facing, they will simply turn around and walk away to watch the next viral video.
The algorithm can manufacture attention, but only tangible problem solving can manufacture loyalty.
Juka even states it plainly in the text, almost washing his hands of the moral responsibility. He says, if there is no trust, the matter will not progress anywhere despite the publicity. But that is not my problem.
He essentially says, I gave you the architectural blueprint to build the door and the lockpicks to open it. It is entirely on you to have something valuable waiting inside the house.
Precisely. He is the engineer describing the circuit. He doesn't care what program you run on it.
What an incredible, intense journey this has been. Let's just briefly recap what we've walked through today because it is a massive amount of information to process.
We started with the fundamental emotional architecture of humanity. Our desperate need for a grand story of origin, purpose, and destiny, and how logic is merely the lawyer defending our emotional impulses.
We move through the strategic filtering of audiences, recognizing the biological reality that 75% of the world is just waiting for a confident authority figure to outsource their thinking to.
We looked at the psychological hooks of immediate problem solving, getting that foot in the door with a microtransaction of trust that exploits the sunk cost fallacy.
We explored the dark sociological arts of creating monsters to forge unbreakable group identities by hijacking the amygdala.
And finally, we dissected the brute force computer science hacking of modern social media algorithms to force that manufactured ideology onto the screens of the masses.
It is a comprehensive, terrifyingly effective end-to-end system for the manufacturing of human belief. and it leaves us with a very unsettling reality to confront.
Juka signs off his post with a highly ominous question, asking the reader directly if they truly still believe that modern trends are organic, or that the experts they follow genuinely know what they're talking about.
Right. After seeing the machinery under the floorboards, it's a total gut punch of a question.
So I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over, expanding on Juka's warning. When this deep dive ends, I want you to open up your phone and look at your own social media feed.
Really look at it not as a consumer, but as an analyst. Look at the products being pushed. Look at the specific flavor of political outrage dominating the day. Look at the trending hashtags you see right now.
And ask yourself, how many of your own deeply held beliefs, the things you consider your core identity, the specific monsters you have chosen to fear and fight against, were organically formed by your own independent logic?
And how many were systematically engineered by a 50-person strike team that started by selling you a $20 solution to a problem you didn't even know you had?
That is a terrifying but absolutely necessary lens to look through if we want to navigate this digital world safely. Thank you all so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been eye-opening.
The next time someone shows up at your door, whether it's your physical front porch or, more likely, your digital feed trying to sell you a worldview, you will know exactly how to look for the strings pulling the puppet. We'll catch you next time.